Beneath the waves lies a world darker than space itself. A place where sunlight never reaches, where pressure can crush steel in seconds, and where life has evolved into the strangest, most alien forms on Earth. Right now, as you listen to this, there are creatures moving through the depths that are so bizarre, so incredible, that they seem like they belong in science fiction rather than reality. Today, we're diving into the mysteries of the deep ocean. And trust me, some of these facts will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about sounds so mysterious they baffled scientists for decades, creatures with eyes the size of dinner plates, and places on our own planet that are more alien than Mars. We'll discover underwater lakes inside the ocean, living creatures that produce light without heat, and monsters that inspired legends for thousands of years. The ocean covers 71% of our planet's surface, yet we know less about it than we do about the surface of the moon. We've mapped every crater on Mars in stunning detail, photographed distant galaxies, and sent probes to the edge of our solar system. But down there, in the crushing darkness of our own oceans, entire worlds remain completely unknown to us. We've explored less than 5% of our oceans, which means 95% of our planet's living space remains a complete mystery. Here's a fact that will change your perspective forever. There are mountain ranges under the ocean that dwarf the Himalayas. There are canyons deeper than the Grand Canyon. There are waterfalls under the water itself, cascades of dense, cold water plunging thousands of meters down underwater cliffs. And in this alien landscape, life has found ways to thrive that rewrite the rules of what we thought was possible. We're going to meet creatures tonight that have no eyes but can navigate perfectly in eternal darkness. We'll discover animals that create their own light shows more spectacular than any fireworks display. We'll explore underwater rivers and lakes that exist thousands of meters below the surface. And we'll uncover the truth behind mysterious sounds that once had scientists wondering if sea monsters were real. Hit that like button if you want us to keep exploring the unknown. The more love we get, the deeper we go into the mysteries that our planet is hiding from us. Because what we're about to discover together will change how you see our blue planet forever. Here's a fact that will change how you see our planet forever. We have explored less than 5% of our oceans. Think about that for a moment. We live on a water world, and we know almost nothing about most of it. When astronauts look down at Earth from space, they see a blue marble. But that blue represents the greatest unexplored frontier in our solar system, a world more alien than anything we've found on Mars or Venus. The deep ocean is divided into zones, and each one becomes more alien than the last. Let's take this journey together, descending from the familiar surface into realms that seem to belong to another planet entirely. First, there's the epipelagic zone, the sunlight zone, extending from the surface down to about 200 meters. This is where most marine life that we're familiar with exists. Dolphins, sharks, tuna, and countless other species call this zone home. The water here is warm, bright, and teeming with life powered by photosynthesis. But drop down past 200 meters, and you enter the mesopelagic zone, the twilight zone. Here, the last rays of sunlight struggle to penetrate the water, creating an environment of perpetual dusk. The temperature drops dramatically, and the pressure begins to build. Many creatures in this zone have evolved the ability to migrate vertically, rising toward the surface at night to feed and descending during the day to hide in the deeper darkness. Continue down to 1,000 meters, and you're in the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone, where no natural light has ever penetrated. The temperature here hovers just above freezing, around 4 degrees Celsius, and the pressure is 100 times greater than at sea level. This is already enough pressure to crush most submarines, yet this zone is home to some of the most incredible creatures on our planet. But we're just getting started. At 4,000 meters down, you enter the abyssopelagic zone, the abyssal zone. Here, the pressure is 400 times greater than at sea level. That's enough pressure to crush a human body instantly, to collapse submarines like tin cans, to compress air so completely that it becomes liquid. The temperature is a constant 1 to 4 degrees Celsius, and the darkness is absolute and eternal. Yet this zone represents the vast majority of our planet's living space. Finally, there's the Hadal Pelagic Zone, the Hadal Zone, which exists in the deepest ocean trenches, from 6,000 meters down to the deepest known point at over 11,000 meters. Named after Hades, the ancient Greek underworld, this zone experiences pressures over 1,000 times greater than at sea level. Until recently, scientists believed nothing could survive in such extreme conditions. They were spectacularly wrong. But here's where our journey takes a truly mind-bending turn. In this alien world, there are lakes. Yes, you heard that right. Lakes inside the ocean. These are called brine pools, and they're one of the most surreal sights in the natural world. Picture this. You're in a submersible, thousands of meters below the surface, surrounded by the crushing darkness of the deep ocean. Suddenly, your lights illuminate what looks exactly like a lake on the ocean floor, complete with a distinct surface and shorelines. These underwater lakes are created when super salty water, denser than regular seawater, settles in depressions on the ocean floor. The difference in density is so pronounced that the brine forms a distinct layer, creating what looks like a lake bed thousands of meters underwater. From a submersible, these pools look so much like surface lakes that you feel like you could skip stones across them. If you could survive the pressure, that is. But here's the terrifying part. These underwater lakes are often toxic. The brine contains high concentrations of hydrogen sulfide and methane, chemicals that are deadly to most marine life. Fish that swim into these pools can be poisoned or even killed instantly. Scientists have captured footage of fish swimming along normally, then suddenly entering a brine pool and immediately going into distress, their movements becoming erratic before they die. Yet even in these toxic underwater lakes, life finds a way. The edges of brine pools are often surrounded by unique ecosystems of bacteria and other microorganisms that have adapted to thrive in these extreme chemical conditions. Some brine pools are surrounded by what looks like a border of white bacterial mats, creating an otherworldly landscape that resembles alien terrain more than anything on Earth's surface. The deep ocean is so vast and so alien that if you could drain all the water from it, the seafloor would reveal landscapes more dramatic than anything on the continents. There are mountain ranges taller than the Himalayas, including the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which stretches for 10,000 miles along the ocean floor. There are canyons that make the Grand Canyon look like a scratch in the dirt. The Monterey Canyon off the coast of California is deeper and larger than the Grand Canyon, carved by underwater currents over millions of years. There are underwater waterfalls, where dense cold water plunges down underwater cliffs in cascades that dwarf Niagara Falls. The largest underwater waterfall, between Greenland and Iceland, carries 123 million cubic feet of water per second. That's 2,000 times more water than Niagara Falls, plunging 11,500 feet down an underwater cliff face. We're not just talking about another ecosystem here. We're talking about an entirely different planet, one that exists right beneath our feet, more alien and mysterious than the surface of Mars, more unexplored than the deepest space, and more full of surprises than we ever dared imagine. Now, imagine you're descending into this alien world in a submersible. As the last traces of sunlight fade away above you, something magical begins to happen. The darkness around you starts to sparkle, not with stars, but with living light. Welcome to one of nature's most incredible phenomena, bioluminescence. And what you're about to discover will change how you think about light, life, and the very nature of survival in extreme environments. In the deep ocean, up to 90% of creatures produce their own light. Let that statistic sink in for a moment. 9 out of every 10 animals in the deep sea are living light bulbs, biological lanterns that have mastered the art of creating light without heat. They've evolved this ability over millions of years, and they use it for everything: hunting, hiding, communicating, finding mates, and even psychological warfare. The chemistry behind bioluminescence is absolutely fascinating. Most of these creatures use a chemical called luciferin, which reacts with oxygen in the presence of an enzyme called luciferase. The result is what scientists call cold light, illumination with almost no heat production, making it incredibly efficient. In fact, bioluminescent light is so efficient that if we could replicate it perfectly, we could revolutionize lighting technology on Earth. LED lights, our most efficient artificial lighting, are only about 20% efficient. Bioluminescent organisms achieve nearly 100% efficiency. But efficiency is just the beginning. The variety and sophistication of these biological light systems would make any engineer jealous. Some creatures can control the intensity of their light, dimming and brightening like biological dimmer switches. Others can change colors, shifting from blue to green to red depending on their needs. Some can create complex patterns, flashing lights in sequences as sophisticated as any computer program. Let's start with one of the most famous residents of the deep, the anglerfish. This creature looks like it emerged from humanity's worst nightmares, with a massive mouth that can unhinge like a snake's, filled with needle-sharp teeth that angle inward, ensuring that anything that enters never escapes. But the truly incredible part is the glowing lure that dangles in front of its face like a biological fishing rod. This isn't just a simple light bulb. The anglerfish's lure, called an esker, is a complex biological system involving symbiotic bacteria that live in a specialized organ. These bacteria produce the light, and the anglerfish provides them with nutrients and a home. But here's where it gets really sophisticated. The anglerfish can control this light. It can make it brighter or dimmer. It can make it flash in patterns, and some species can even change the color. The hunting strategy is diabolical in its simplicity. In the eternal darkness of the deep ocean, any source of light attracts attention. Small fish, thinking they're swimming toward food, safety, or even potential mates, instead swim directly into the anglerfish's cavernous mouth. The anglerfish doesn't even have to move. It just sits in the darkness like a biological trap, using light as bait. But the anglerfish's light show is nothing compared to the vampire squid. Don't let the name scare you. Despite its ominous title, it doesn't actually suck blood. Instead, Vampiropoda infernalis, which literally means vampire squid from hell, is one of the most sophisticated light artists in the ocean. When threatened, the vampire squid can turn itself into a living constellation. It flips itself inside out, revealing photophores, light-producing organs, that create intricate patterns of blue light across its body. But it doesn't stop there. The vampire squid can eject clouds of bioluminescent mucus, creating a glowing decoy that confuses predators while it escapes into the darkness. It literally leaves behind a cloud of glowing slime to save its life. The vampire squid can also control which photophores light up and when, creating rippling waves of light across its body. Scientists have observed patterns that seem almost like communication, leading some researchers to speculate that these creatures might have a form of light-based language that we're only beginning to understand. Then there are the jellyfish, and in the deep ocean, jellyfish become living galaxies. The crystal jelly, Aquaria victoria, can produce flashes of green light along the rim of its bell. When disturbed, it creates rippling waves of bioluminescence that pulse through its transparent body like alien technology. The light travels in waves from the point of disturbance outward, creating patterns so beautiful they've inspired artists and so functional they've revolutionized science. In fact, the green fluorescent protein from crystal jellies has become one of the most important tools in modern biology. Scientists use it to track genes, study cellular processes, and understand disease. The 2008 Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded for the discovery and development of this protein. A simple jellyfish in the deep ocean led to breakthroughs in cancer research, neuroscience, and genetics. But perhaps the most incredible bioluminescent display comes from a creature called the Atala jellyfish. When attacked, it creates what scientists call a burglar alarm display. It sends out a spinning circle of bright light, like a biological lighthouse beacon rotating at high speed. This creates a crown of light around the jellyfish that can be seen from great distances in the dark ocean. The theory behind this spectacular display is ingenious. The bright spinning light attracts larger predators who might eat whatever is attacking the jellyfish. It's essentially calling for help using light, sending out a distress signal that says, "Hey, there's an easy meal over here." The predator attacking the jellyfish suddenly finds itself being hunted by something even larger. Siphonophores, those colonial organisms that can stretch for hundreds of feet, create some of the most spectacular light displays in the ocean. The Bioluminescent, which can grow longer than a blue whale, is covered in thousands of individual light-producing units. When disturbed, waves of light travel along its entire length, creating what looks like a living galaxy stretching through the water. Some deep-sea creatures use bioluminescence for camouflage in a technique called counter-illumination. The Hawaiian bobtail squid, for example, has light-producing organs on its underside that match the faint light filtering down from above. To a predator looking up from below, the squid becomes invisible, perfectly blended with the background light. Others use bioluminescence for communication. Flashlight fish have organs under their eyes that they can cover and uncover like biological shutters, creating flashing patterns that may be used to communicate with other flashlight fish. Some scientists believe these patterns might be as complex as Morse code, carrying information about food sources, mating opportunities, or danger. Research teams have captured footage of these light displays using specially designed cameras that can film in almost complete darkness. Watching these videos is like seeing magic happen in real time. Creatures that look completely ordinary in regular light suddenly transform into living works of art when they activate their bioluminescence. Scientists estimate that we've only discovered a tiny fraction of bioluminescent species. Every deep-sea expedition discovers new creatures with new types of light displays. Down in the depths, there are probably thousands of species creating light shows that no human has ever witnessed. Biological fireworks displays happening in the darkness of the deep ocean, performances that have been going on for millions of years without an audience. The sophistication of these systems suggests that bioluminescence isn't just a neat trick. It's a crucial survival tool that has been refined over millions of years of evolution. In a world without sunlight, the ability to create and control light becomes one of the most valuable assets a creature can have. And the creativity that evolution has shown in developing these systems is simply breathtaking. Now let's talk about one of the most mysterious and captivating events in ocean exploration history. A story that captivated the world and fueled speculation about sea monsters for nearly a decade. In the summer of 1997, an array of underwater microphones placed throughout the Pacific Ocean by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration picked up a sound unlike anything ever recorded in the ocean's depths. The sound was massive, incredibly massive. So loud that it was detected by hydrophones over 5,000 kilometers apart, from the coast of Chile to stations near Antarctica. To put that distance in perspective, that's like a sound being heard clearly from New York to London. In the ocean, where sound travels differently than in air, this represented an acoustic event of unprecedented magnitude. Scientists gave this sound a simple name, the Bloop. But there was nothing simple about what they had recorded. When they first analyzed the audio, they found a sound that rose in frequency over the course of about 1 minute, starting low and climbing higher like some massive creature calling out across the ocean's depths. The acoustic signature was unlike anything in their databases. The sound didn't match any known geological activity. It wasn't consistent with underwater earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or tectonic plate movements. It didn't match any known weather phenomenon, not storms, not tsunamis, not underwater landslides. Most intriguingly, it didn't match any known animal calls, but when scientists sped up the recording, it had qualities that seemed almost biological. The timing couldn't have been more perfect for speculation. This was the late 1990s, when movies like Deep Impact, The Abyss, and Sphere had captured the public imagination with stories of unknown creatures lurking in the ocean's depths. Marine biologists began to speculate. If the sound was biological, whatever made it would have to be enormous. A blue whale, the largest animal known to have ever lived on Earth, produces sounds that can travel hundreds of kilometers underwater. but the bloop was detected across thousands of kilometers. If it was made by an animal, that creature would have to be several times larger than a blue whale. We're talking about a creature that could be 200, 300, maybe even 500 feet long. The speculation ran wild. Could there be unknown species of giant squid lurking in the deepest trenches? Could there be prehistoric creatures, relics from the age of dinosaurs, still alive in the ocean's most remote regions? Some researchers pointed to the fact that we had discovered giant squid only recently, and colossal squid even more recently. If creatures that large could remain hidden from science for so long, what else might be down there? But the bloop wasn't alone. The Pacific Hydrophone Network had been picking up strange, unexplained sounds for years, each one given an equally mysterious name. There was upsweep, a sound that rose in frequency like a slide whistle, detected continuously for years before gradually fading away. Scientists could find no explanation for what could produce such a sustained, rising tone in the deep ocean. There was whistle, a sound that lasted for several minutes and resembled, well, whistling. But this wasn't a brief whistle, it was a sustained, pure tone that seemed to come from the deepest parts of the Pacific. No known animal produces such sounds, and no known geological process could account for it. Then there was slow down, a sound that decreased in frequency over several minutes, like a massive engine winding down. The sound was detected multiple times over several years, always from roughly the same region of the Pacific, always with the same characteristic frequency decrease. Each of these sounds was given a name, and each one remained a mystery. Scientists would analyze the recordings over and over, trying to match them to known sources. Some sounded almost mechanical, like underwater machinery operating in the depths. Others sounded organic, like the calls of unknown animals, but animals far larger than anything known to science. The mystery of the bloop persisted for years, fueling documentaries, books, and countless internet discussions. It became a cornerstone of cryptozoology, the study of unknown animals. Marine biologists searched historical records for reports of unusually large sea creatures. They studied the migration patterns of whales, looking for unknown populations that might produce such sounds. Geologists examined underwater volcanic activity, looking for new types of eruptions that might explain the acoustic signatures. Meteorologists studied weather patterns, searching for atmospheric phenomena that might create sounds in the deep ocean. Military experts wondered if the sounds might be from classified underwater vehicles or weapons tests. The speculation reached fever pitch when researchers realized that the bloop had originated from a region of the Pacific, not far from the coordinates that H.P. Lovecraft had given for the fictional city of R'lyeh in his Cthulhu stories. The coincidence was too delicious for popular culture to ignore, and the bloop became associated with theories about ancient sea monsters and unknown civilizations beneath the waves. Then, in 2005, scientists finally solved the mystery. The bloop, along with upsweep, whistle, slow down, and most of the other mysterious sounds, wasn't biological at all. It wasn't geological. It wasn't artificial. It was ice. Specifically, the bloop was the sound of massive icebergs breaking away from Antarctic ice sheets and scraping along the ocean floor. The sound was so distorted by traveling thousands of miles underwater, through different temperature layers and around underwater mountain ranges, that it became completely unrecognizable. The process that created the bloop is called icequake, and it's far more dramatic than most people realize. When a piece of ice the size of a small country breaks away from Antarctica, it doesn't do so quietly. The fracturing ice creates acoustic waves that travel through the water for thousands of miles. As these icebergs scrape along the ocean floor, they produce sounds that can last for minutes or even hours. While some people were disappointed by this explanation, scientists were actually fascinated. The fact that breaking ice could create a sound loud enough to be heard across an ocean demonstrated just how little we understood about underwater acoustics and the ways sound travels through the complex environment of the deep ocean. The resolution of the bloop mystery raised an intriguing question. If breaking ice could fool scientists for years, creating sounds that seemed biological or artificial, What other sounds are we hearing down there that we can't explain? The ocean is full of acoustic mysteries, sounds that we detect but can't identify, calls that might be from animals we've never discovered, or geological processes we don't yet understand. Even today, hydrophones around the world continue to pick up strange sounds from the deep ocean. Most are eventually explained, but some remain mysteries, reminders that our planet still has secrets hiding in the crushing depths of the sea. For centuries, sailors around the world told remarkably similar stories. Massive tentacled monsters rising from the depths to drag entire ships down to their doom. From the fjords of Norway to the waters off Japan, from the Caribbean to the Mediterranean, maritime cultures everywhere had legends of enormous sea creatures with arms like ship masts and eyes like glowing coals. For most of human history, these stories were dismissed by scientists as mere superstition, the products of sailors' overactive imaginations, too much rum, and the natural human tendency to exaggerate dangers. But as we've explored the deep ocean with modern technology, we've discovered something remarkable. Many of these mythical creatures were real. The monsters of legend actually exist, and in some cases, they're even more incredible than the stories suggested. Meet the giant squid, Architeuthis dux, a creature so extraordinary that it has forced scientists to rewrite the rules of what they thought was possible in the animal kingdom. For decades, the only evidence we had of these creatures were fragments, tentacles washing up on beaches, massive beaks found in the stomachs of sperm whales, and circular scars on whales that could only have come from enormous suction cups. The giant squid is a creature of superlatives. Adult specimens can reach lengths of up to 13 meters for females and 10 meters for males, not including their tentacles. When you include the feeding tentacles, some specimens may reach total lengths of 18 meters or more. That's longer than most city buses, longer than many houses, longer than some blue whales. But here's what makes the giant squid truly mind-blowing: its eyes. Giant squid have the largest eyes of any animal on Earth, living or extinct. We're talking about eyes the size of dinner plates, up to 27 centimeters across. That's larger than a basketball, larger than most computer monitors. These aren't just oversized organs. They're precision instruments perfectly adapted for life in the deep ocean's eternal darkness. With eyes that large, a giant squid can gather even the faintest traces of light. In the deep ocean, where sunlight never penetrates, these massive eyes can detect the bioluminescence produced by other creatures from hundreds of meters away. Scientists believe that giant squid can spot a sperm whale, their primary predator, approaching from over 120 meters away, even in complete darkness. The arms of a giant squid are marvels of biological engineering. The 8 arms can reach lengths of 5 to 6 meters, and they're covered with hundreds of suction cups, each lined with sharp, chitinous rings that work like tiny serrated knives. But it's the 2 feeding tentacles that are truly extraordinary. These can extend to lengths of 10 to 12 meters and end in clubs covered with large suction cups equipped with rotating hooks. These hooks aren't just for grabbing prey, they're sophisticated weapons. They can rotate 360 degrees, allowing the squid to get a grip on prey from any angle. The hooks are sharp enough to penetrate flesh and strong enough to hold struggling prey that might weigh hundreds of kilograms. When a giant squid strikes, it's like being grabbed by multiple armed fighters, each armed with rotating blades. But the giant squid's hunting strategy is perhaps the most incredible part. They're ambush predators that hang motionless in the water column, using their neutral buoyancy to hover without expending energy. When prey comes within range, they strike with explosive speed, using jet propulsion to launch themselves forward, while their tentacles shoot out to grab their target. The speed of this attack is almost impossible to comprehend. High-speed cameras have captured similar strikes from smaller squid species, showing that the tentacles can extend to full length in less than 30 milliseconds. That's 3 times faster than you can blink. For a giant squid, with tentacles over 10 meters long, this means the business end of those tentacles is moving at speeds of over 1,200 kilometers per hour when they strike. For decades, scientists dreamed of filming a living giant squid in its natural habitat. It became one of the holy grails of marine biology. Expeditions were mounted, millions of dollars were spent, and special cameras and submersibles were developed specifically for this purpose. The problem was that giant squid live at depths of 300 to 1,000 meters in areas where light never penetrates, and they seem to be extremely sensitive to artificial lights and sounds. Finally, in 2004, Japanese scientists achieved what many thought impossible. Using a simple baited line with an attached camera, they photographed a living giant squid in the wild for the first time in human history. The images showed a creature even more magnificent than anyone had imagined, with arms gracefully extended and eyes clearly visible even in the low-resolution photographs. But the story doesn't end with the giant squid. In 2007, scientists fishing in Antarctic waters hauled up something that defied belief: a colossal squid, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, a creature that most marine biologists thought was just a hypothesis based on a few fragments found in whale stomachs. The colossal squid makes the giant squid look small. While giant squid are longer, colossal squid are significantly heavier and bulkier. The specimen caught in 2007 weighed 495 kilograms and was estimated to be only a juvenile. Adult colossal squid are thought to reach weights of up to 750 kilograms, making them the largest invertebrates on Earth. But size isn't the only difference. Colossal squid have evolved even more sophisticated weapons than their giant cousins. Instead of hooks on their tentacle clubs, they have rotating hooks on their arms as well. These hooks can swivel 360 degrees and are sharp enough to slice through flesh like razors. Some of these hooks are over 5 centimeters long, making them more like curved daggers than simple grasping tools. The colossal squid's hunting grounds are the deep waters around Antarctica, some of the most remote and inhospitable environments on Earth. They hunt in total darkness at depths where the pressure would instantly crush any human. They feed on large fish, including Antarctic toothfish, which can themselves grow to over 2 meters in length. Here's something that will give you chills. Colossal squid are so rarely encountered that most of what we know comes from specimens found in the stomachs of sperm whales. This means that sperm whales, which can dive to depths of over 2,000 meters and hold their breath for over 90 minutes, regularly hunt and successfully kill these massive, heavily armed predators. The battles between sperm whales and giant or colossal squid must be epic encounters, fights between titans in the crushing darkness of the deep ocean. Sperm whales often surface with circular scars from squid suction cups, some of which are larger than any suction cups found on known squid species. This suggests there might be even larger squid species out there, creatures so massive and rare that we've never captured or even seen one. Scientists have found suction cup scars on sperm whales that measure over 50 centimeters in diameter. If these scars are proportional to the animals that made them, they would suggest squid with arms over 20 meters long. That's longer than most giant squid in their entirety. The really incredible part is that these creatures might not even be the largest squid species out there. The deep ocean is so vast and so unexplored that there could be even more massive species waiting to be discovered. Every time scientists think they understand the limits of what's possible in the deep ocean, they discover something that forces them to expand those limits. Recent advances in deep-sea photography have captured images of squid behaviors that seem almost intelligent. Giant squid have been photographed using their arms to manipulate objects, to explore their environment, and to communicate with other squid through color changes and body postures. Some scientists believe that these creatures might be far more intelligent than we've ever suspected. The hunt for living giant and colossal squid continues. Scientists are developing new techniques to study these elusive creatures without disturbing them. They're using environmental DNA sampling to track squid populations, developing new types of non-invasive cameras, and even training artificial intelligence systems to recognize squid behavior patterns in underwater footage. What we're learning is that these creatures are not just oversized versions of smaller squid. They've evolved sophisticated adaptations for life in the deep ocean that we're only beginning to understand. They represent millions of years of evolution in one of Earth's most extreme environments, and they may hold keys to understanding how life can adapt to conditions that seem impossible. In 1977, scientists made a discovery that didn't just surprise the scientific community, it fundamentally changed our understanding of life itself. Deep on the Pacific Ocean floor, at a depth where crushing pressure and eternal darkness should make complex life impossible, researchers stumbled upon something that seemed to violate the basic rules of biology, thriving ecosystems unlike anything ever seen before. These weren't just small clusters of bacteria clinging to life in harsh conditions. These were complex, diverse communities of creatures flourishing around hydrothermal vents, underwater geysers where the Earth's crust is so thin that superheated water bursts through, carrying with it a cocktail of minerals and chemicals that would be toxic to most life forms we know. The water around these vents reaches temperatures of 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. It's filled with hydrogen sulfide, the same chemical that gives rotten eggs their smell and is deadly to most organisms in even small concentrations. The pressure at these depths is hundreds of times greater than at sea level, and yet life doesn't just survive here, it absolutely thrives. Let's start with one of the most incredible residents of these underwater volcanic environments, the Pompeii worm, Alvinella pompejana. This creature lives so close to hydrothermal vents that it experiences one of the most extreme temperature gradients of any animal on Earth. Its head sits in water that's around 22 degrees Celsius, while its tail end tolerates temperatures that reach 80 degrees Celsius and sometimes higher. To put that in perspective, that tail temperature is hot enough to kill most bacteria, hot enough to cook an egg, hot enough to cause third-degree burns to human skin instantly. Yet the Pompeii worm not only survives these conditions, it requires them. The temperature difference along its body is more extreme than the difference between freezing water and a hot summer day. How does it survive? Its back is covered in a fleece-like covering of bacteria that form a symbiotic relationship with the worm. These bacteria aren't just passengers, they're sophisticated insulation systems that help regulate the worm's body temperature, while also providing nutrients through chemosynthesis. It's like having a living, breathing thermal regulation system built right into your skin. Then there are the giant tube worms, Riftia pachyptila, perhaps the most alien-looking creatures in these vent communities. These worms can grow up to 8 feet long and 4 inches in diameter, making them some of the largest worms on Earth. But here's what makes them truly extraordinary. They have no mouth, no stomach, no digestive system, and no way of eating in any conventional sense. Instead of a digestive system, giant tube worms have a specialized organ called a trophosome that's packed with billions of chemosynthetic bacteria. These bacteria convert the toxic hydrogen sulfide from the vents into organic compounds that feed the worm. It's a completely different way of obtaining energy, one that doesn't depend on photosynthesis or consuming other organisms. The worm essentially farms bacteria inside its own body, providing them with chemicals from the vents and receiving nutrients in return. The relationship is so sophisticated that the bacteria have evolved to live nowhere else, and the worms cannot survive without their bacterial partners. It's one of the most complete examples of symbiosis in the natural world, a partnership that has allowed both organisms to colonize one of Earth's most extreme environments. Around these vents, you'll find entire ecosystems that seem to belong on an alien planet. There are ghostly white crabs, Bythagrea thermidron, that have never seen sunlight. These crabs have reduced or completely absent eyes, having evolved in a world where vision is useless. Instead, they navigate using highly sensitive chemical receptors that can detect the faintest traces of nutrients in the water. The vent crabs feed on bacteria that grow around the vents, but they've also been observed feeding on each other and on the various worms and other creatures that make up the vent communities. They can withstand water temperatures that would kill most other crabs instantly, and they've developed specialized proteins that prevent their cells from denaturing in the heat. There are also vent shrimp, Rimicaris exoculata, that swarm around the vents in massive numbers, sometimes forming dense clouds of thousands of individuals. These shrimp are almost completely blind in the conventional sense, but they have developed specialized light-detecting organs on their backs that can sense the faint infrared radiation given off by the hot water. They use this heat-sensing ability to navigate around the vents, staying close enough to feed on the bacteria but far enough away to avoid being cooked. Perhaps most remarkable are the scale worms, Branchipollinocepensis, that live directly on the surface of the giant tube worms. These small worms can withstand direct exposure to vent fluids and have been observed surviving in water temperatures that exceed 60 degrees Celsius. They've evolved specialized proteins called heat shock proteins that help their cells maintain function even when exposed to temperatures that would denature the proteins in most other organisms. But here's what makes this discovery truly revolutionary for our understanding of life in the universe. These creatures don't depend on the sun for energy. Every ecosystem on Earth's surface ultimately relies on photosynthesis, on plants and algae converting sunlight into chemical energy that then flows through food chains. But the vent communities are powered entirely by chemosynthesis, using chemical energy instead of solar energy. This discovery completely changed how scientists think about the possibility of life elsewhere in the universe. Before 1977, most scientists assumed that life required sunlight, either directly or indirectly. But the vent communities proved that life could exist entirely independently of solar energy, depending only on chemical reactions and liquid water. This has enormous implications for astrobiology, the search for life beyond Earth. Scientists now believe that places like Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, could have hydrothermal vents beneath its ice-covered ocean. Europa's ocean is kept liquid by tidal forces from Jupiter's massive gravity, and if there are volcanic vents on Europa's ocean floor, they could support ecosystems similar to Earth's deep-sea vent communities. The same is true for Saturn's moon Enceladus, which has geysers of water erupting from its south pole, suggesting a liquid ocean beneath its icy surface. If there are hydrothermal vents in Enceladus's ocean, they could be powering ecosystems right now, ecosystems that evolved completely independently from life on Earth. The extremophiles around Earth's hydrothermal vents have also revolutionized biotechnology. Scientists have discovered enzymes from these organisms that remain stable at temperatures that would destroy conventional enzymes. These heat-stable enzymes are now used in DNA amplification techniques, industrial processes, and medical applications. Some of the bacteria from vent communities can break down toxic compounds that are impossible for other organisms to process. This has led to new approaches in environmental cleanup, using these hardy bacteria to neutralize pollution in environments too extreme for conventional cleanup methods. But perhaps the most profound implication is what these creatures tell us about the resilience and creativity of life itself. The extremophiles prove that life is not fragile or limited to the narrow band of conditions we see on Earth's surface. Instead, life is incredibly adaptable, capable of finding ways to thrive in conditions we once thought were absolutely impossible. These discoveries have forced scientists to expand their definition of habitable zones around other stars. Previously, astronomers focused on planets that were just the right distance from their stars to have liquid water on their surfaces. But now we know that life can exist in subsurface oceans, powered by internal heat sources, on planets and moons that are far from their stars. The extremophiles of the deep ocean have shown us that life might be far more common in the universe than we ever dared hope. Wherever there's liquid water and chemical energy, there might be life finding a way to survive and thrive, even in conditions that seem absolutely impossible to us. For thousands of years, the ocean was humanity's greatest source of monster stories, and every culture that lived near the sea developed remarkably similar legends of enormous creatures rising from the depths to terrorize sailors. The Norse spoke of the Kraken, a creature so massive it could be mistaken for an island, with tentacles thick as ship masts that could drag entire vessels down to the depths. Greek mythology gave us sirens with voices that could lure ships to their destruction, and sea serpents that could coil around ships and crush them like toys. Pacific Island cultures told stories of dragon-like creatures that controlled the waves themselves, while Caribbean pirates spoke of monsters with glowing eyes that would rise from the deepest waters during storms. Native American coastal tribes had legends of underwater thunder beings, creatures so large that their movements created whirlpools and tidal waves. For most of human history, these stories were dismissed by scientists and educated people as mere superstition, the products of sailors' overactive imaginations, sleep deprivation, scurvy-induced hallucinations, and perhaps a bit too much rum. The Age of Enlightenment and scientific rationalism taught us to reject such tales as primitive folklore, remnants of humanity's superstitious past. But as we've explored the deep ocean with modern technology and scientific methods, we've discovered something remarkable and somewhat humbling. Many of these myths were actually based on real encounters with creatures that are every bit as incredible as the legends suggested. The monsters were real. We just didn't have the technology or knowledge to understand what sailors were actually seeing. Take the Kraken legend, one of the most persistent and detailed sea monster stories in maritime history. Norwegian fishermen for centuries told remarkably consistent stories of a creature so enormous that sleeping sailors could mistake it for an island. They described tentacles thick as ship masts, eyes like burning coals, and a creature capable of creating whirlpools that could drag entire vessels down to the depths. These weren't vague, inconsistent tales. The descriptions were detailed and specific. The Kraken was said to surface rarely, usually in deep water far from shore. It was described as having multiple arms that could reach incredible lengths. Fishermen reported that when the creature was feeding, the water around it would be thick with fish, as if the Kraken's presence somehow attracted prey. For centuries, scientists dismissed these stories as complete fantasy. But we now know that giant and colossal squid can reach truly massive sizes, with some specimens having arms that extend over 10 meters. A giant squid floating at the surface with its arms fully extended could easily span the length of a Viking longship. In the dim light of dawn or dusk, especially in rough seas, such a creature could indeed be mistaken for a small island. The behavior described in Kraken legends also matches what we know about giant squid hunting behavior. These creatures are known to create feeding frenzies, and their presence does seem to attract other marine life. The tentacles reaching up from the depths to grab at ships matches the hunting strategy of large squid species, which use their long feeding tentacles to strike at prey from below. Even more intriguingly, the legendary whirlpools associated with the Kraken might have a basis in reality. Large squid use jet propulsion for rapid movement, expelling water from their bodies to create thrust. A creature the size of a giant squid suddenly diving or rapidly changing direction could indeed create powerful currents and eddies in the water. Sailors' reports of enormous sea serpents, creatures hundreds of feet long undulating through the water like massive snakes, might have been encounters with giant siphonophores. These are colonial organisms made up of millions of individual creatures working together to create what appears to be a single, massive animal. The longest siphonophore ever recorded was 154 feet long, longer than a blue whale and certainly long enough to inspire tales of sea monsters. Siphonophores move through the water with a distinctive undulating motion, exactly like the sea serpents described in maritime legends. They're transparent or translucent, which could explain why sailors often reported seeing these creatures briefly before they seemed to disappear into the water. The stories of mermaids and sirens, half-human creatures that would lure sailors to their deaths, might have originated from encounters with marine mammals in unusual circumstances. Manatees and dugongs, seen briefly in poor lighting conditions or through the haze of heat distortion, could explain some of these sightings. But some marine biologists have suggested that encounters with intelligent deep-sea creatures we haven't yet discovered could have inspired these persistent legends. What's particularly fascinating about mermaid legends is how consistent they are across cultures that had no contact with each other. European, African, Asian, and American cultures all have remarkably similar descriptions of human-like creatures living in the sea. This suggests either a common origin for these stories or multiple independent encounters with something real. Even more intriguing are the consistent reports throughout history of massive creatures surfacing near ships, creatures with glowing eyes that would appear suddenly from the depths. Medieval manuscripts describe enormous fish with eyes like lanterns that would rise from the deepest waters, particularly during storms or at night. These descriptions match perfectly with what we now know about deep-sea creatures that use bioluminescence. Many large deep-sea animals have prominent light-producing organs, and they often engage in vertical migration, rising to shallower waters at night to feed. A large, bioluminescent creature suddenly surfacing near a ship in the darkness would indeed appear to be a glowing monster rising from the abyss. Pacific Island cultures have particularly rich traditions of sea monsters, including detailed descriptions of creatures with multiple arms, enormous eyes, and the ability to change color. These descriptions are remarkably similar to what we now know about large deep-sea octopi and squid species, creatures that weren't scientifically documented until very recently. The Polynesian legend of the Tangaroa, a many-armed sea god that could change its appearance at will, sounds remarkably like descriptions of large octopi, creatures known for their intelligence, color-changing abilities, and sophisticated camouflage techniques. What's most remarkable is how accurate many of these ancient descriptions turn out to be. The sizes, behaviors, and even specific physical features described in maritime legends often match what we've discovered about real deep-sea creatures. This suggests that our ancestors were better observers than we gave them credit for, and that the ocean was revealing its secrets to humanity long before we had the technology to study them scientifically. The truth is, the ocean is still full of creatures that would seem like monsters to our ancestors, and probably to us as well. The difference now is that we have the technology and scientific framework to study them, rather than just fear them. But in many ways, the reality of deep-sea life is more incredible, more diverse, and more alien than any myth humans ever created. Let's journey now to the most extreme places on our planet, locations so remote and hostile that fewer people have visited them than have walked on the surface of the moon. We're talking about the deepest trenches in our oceans, cracks in the earth, crust that plunge down into darkness so complete, and pressure so intense that they represent the closest thing to alien worlds we can find without leaving our planet. At the bottom of the Pacific Ocean lies the Mariana Trench, a scar in the Earth's surface that stretches for over 2,550 kilometers, longer than the entire continental United States is wide. This isn't just a crack in the ocean floor, it's a monument to the incredible geological forces that have shaped our planet for billions of years. The deepest point in the Mariana Trench is called Challenger Deep, named after the HMS Challenger expedition that first measured its depths in 1875. This location plunges down 36,200 feet below sea level, over 11,000 meters into the Earth's crust. To truly comprehend this depth, imagine this. If Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on Earth, were placed in Challenger Deep, its peak would still be over 2,000 meters underwater. The entire mountain would disappear into this abyss without a trace. The conditions at Challenger Deep are beyond anything most people can imagine. The pressure is over 1,086 times greater than at sea level, equivalent to about 50 jumbo jets pressing down on every square meter. That's enough pressure to instantly crush any conventional submarine, to compress air into liquid, to fundamentally change the behavior of water itself. The temperature at the bottom hovers just above freezing, around 1 to 4 degrees Celsius, maintained by the incredible pressure and the distance from any heat source. There is no light whatsoever. The darkness is absolute, eternal, and complete. And no photon of sunlight has ever reached these depths, and none ever will. Yet when scientists finally developed technology capable of reaching these extreme depths, they made discoveries that challenged everything we thought we knew about the limits of life. The first images transmitted back from Challenger Deep revealed a landscape that looks like something from another planet entirely. The seafloor is covered in a fine, almost powdery sediment made up of the microscopic shells and skeletons of countless organisms that have been raining down from the waters above for millions of years. This sediment, called ooze, can be several hundred meters deep in some areas, representing millions of years of accumulated marine life. Rising from this alien seafloor are strange rock formations, some created by the immense pressure, others by chemical processes that occur only in the deepest parts of the ocean. There are formations that look like twisted sculptures, created by minerals precipitating out of the water under extreme conditions. But the most incredible discovery was life itself. Scientists found bacteria and archaea, single-celled organisms that have adapted to survive in the most extreme conditions on Earth. These microorganisms have evolved specialized proteins that remain stable under crushing pressure, specialized membranes that function in the cold, and metabolisms that can extract energy from chemicals that would be toxic to surface life. They discovered amphipods, small shrimp-like creatures called Hirundella gigas, that have evolved remarkable adaptations to survive in the trenches. These creatures have developed specialized proteins called piezolites that prevent their cells from collapsing under the extreme pressure. They've also evolved highly efficient metabolisms that allow them to survive on the limited food that filters down from the surface. Perhaps most remarkably, scientists found evidence that these deep trench ecosystems might be more active and diverse than anyone expected. They discovered that the deepest parts of the trenches act as collection points for organic matter from throughout the ocean. Currents and gravity concentrate nutrients in these areas, creating pockets of relatively abundant food in what was thought to be a biological desert. The Mariana Trench isn't alone in its extremes. There are dozens of other deep-sea trenches around the world, each representing a unique ecosystem that we're only beginning to understand. The Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic reaches depths of over 8,600 meters. The Japan Trench, created by the same geological forces that cause earthquakes and tsunamis in the region, plunges down over 9,000 meters. The Peru-Chile Trench off the coast of South America extends for over 5,900 kilometers and reaches depths of over 8,000 meters. Each of these trenches has its own unique geology, its own chemical environment, and its own specially adapted ecosystems that have evolved in isolation for millions of years. When deep-sea vehicles make the dangerous journey to these extreme depths, they regularly discover things that shouldn't exist according to our current understanding of biology. They've found fish living at depths where scientists thought the pressure would make fish physiology impossible. They've discovered new species of creatures that look like they belong in science fiction movies rather than on Earth. In the Japan Trench, scientists discovered snailfish living at depths of over 8,000 meters, deeper than any fish had ever been found before. These creatures have evolved transparent bodies, anti-freeze proteins, and pressure-resistant cellular structures that allow them to thrive where other fish cannot survive. In the Atacama Trench off the coast of Chile, researchers found entire communities of creatures living in sediment that contains some of the highest concentrations of toxic metals on Earth. These organisms have evolved to not just tolerate these toxins, but actually use them in their metabolisms. But perhaps the most haunting discovery in recent deep-sea exploration was made in the Mariana Trench at a depth of over 35,000 feet. There, in the most remote location on Earth, researchers found unmistakable signs of human impact. A plastic bag and a candy wrapper, stark reminders that even in the deepest, most isolated places on our planet, human pollution has found its way. This discovery was both shocking and symbolic. It demonstrated that there is truly no place on Earth that remains untouched by human activity. But it also highlighted how little we know about how our actions affect these remote ecosystems. The really incredible thing about these deep trenches is how little we know about them. We have better, more detailed maps of the surface of Mars, Venus, and the Moon than we do of the deepest parts of our own oceans. Every expedition to these depths is essentially an expedition to an alien world, one where new discoveries are virtually guaranteed. Scientists estimate that there could be millions of species living in the deep trenches that we haven't discovered yet. Every time they send down a camera, a sampling device, or a manned submersible, they find creatures that are completely unknown to science, geological features that don't exist anywhere else on Earth, and chemical processes that we're still trying to understand. The technology needed to explore these depths represents some of the most advanced engineering on our planet. The vehicles that can survive the journey to places like Challenger Deep are marvels of human ingenuity, with titanium hulls designed to withstand pressures that would crush steel life support systems that can function in the most hostile environment on Earth, and cameras and sampling equipment that can operate in conditions that would destroy conventional electronics. Yet even with this advanced technology, we've explored less than 1% of the deep trench environments on our planet. The vast majority of these alien landscapes remain completely unknown, waiting for future generations of explorers to reveal their secrets. The future of deep-sea exploration is poised to enter a golden age that will revolutionize our understanding of our planet and potentially change our perspective on life in the universe itself. Right now, in laboratories and engineering facilities around the world, scientists are developing technologies that sound like they belong in science fiction, but will soon become the standard tools for exploring the ocean's deepest mysteries. Autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, are being designed with artificial intelligence systems so sophisticated that they can make independent decisions about where to explore and what to investigate. These AI-powered submarines will be able to spend months in the deep ocean, following their own scientific curiosity, adapting their mission parameters based on what they discover. Imagine swarms of these intelligent robots working together like schools of fish, covering vast areas of the ocean floor while communicating with each other in real time. When one robot makes an interesting discovery, it can instantly alert the others, concentrating the entire swarm's attention on the most scientifically valuable locations. They'll be able to respond to discoveries faster than any human-controlled mission ever could. But perhaps the most exciting development is how ocean exploration technology is being driven by space exploration. NASA is leading some of the most innovative deep-sea research projects, not just to study Earth's oceans, but to prepare for missions that will explore the oceans of other worlds. The space agency's Subsea project, which stands for Systematic Underwater Biogeochemical Science and Exploration Analog, is using Earth's deep ocean as a testing ground for missions to Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon that harbors a vast ocean beneath its surface. The project is also preparing for missions to Enceladus, Saturn's moon that has geysers of water erupting from its south pole. The vehicles being developed for these missions represent a complete revolution in exploration technology. They're designed to operate completely independently for years at a time, to melt through miles of ice to deploy into alien oceans and to search for signs of life in environments that have been isolated from the rest of the universe for billions of years. These same technologies are being adapted for Earth's oceans. Scientists are developing nuclear-powered underwater vehicles that can operate for decades without returning to the surface, mapping the ocean floor in unprecedented detail and monitoring deep-sea ecosystems over timescales that were previously impossible. Advanced DNA sampling techniques are being integrated into these exploration platforms, allowing scientists to identify new species and understand ecosystem dynamics without ever having to capture or disturb the organisms they are studying. A single water sample can now reveal the presence of hundreds of different species, many of which might be completely unknown to science. Environmental DNA, or eDNA, analysis is so sensitive that it can detect the genetic signatures of creatures from just a few cells they've shed into the water. This means that scientists can identify rare or elusive species that they might never actually see, building comprehensive pictures of deep-sea biodiversity from genetic evidence alone. Perhaps most exciting is the development of permanent deep-sea research stations, underwater laboratories that will be placed on the ocean floor in key locations around the world. These stations will operate continuously for years or decades, providing our first long-term view of how deep-sea ecosystems function and change over time. These underwater observatories will monitor everything from water temperature and chemistry to the behavior of individual animals, creating data sets that will reveal patterns and processes that we can't detect from short-term research expeditions. They'll help us understand how climate change is affecting the deep ocean, how deep-sea ecosystems respond to disturbances, and how life adapts to changing conditions over long time periods. Virtual reality technology is revolutionizing how we experience and understand deep-sea exploration. Soon, instead of just watching footage from underwater vehicles, researchers and the public will be able to virtually dive to the deepest parts of the ocean. You'll be able to swim alongside giant squid, explore hydrothermal vents, and experience the alien environments of the deep ocean as if you were actually there. This isn't just about making exploration more accessible to the public, though that's certainly important. Virtual reality is becoming a crucial scientific tool, allowing researchers to collaborate in three-dimensional underwater environments, to manipulate and examine deep-sea samples in virtual laboratories, and to train for complex deep-sea missions in risk-free virtual environments. Machine learning and artificial intelligence are being trained to recognize patterns in deep-sea environments that human scientists might miss. These AI systems can analyze thousands of hours of underwater footage, automatically identifying and cataloging new species, tracking animal behaviors, and even predicting where new discoveries might be found. Some AI systems are being trained to recognize the subtle signs that indicate the presence of hydrothermal vents, underwater volcanic activity, or unusual geological features. They can scan vast amounts of sonar data and satellite imagery to identify locations that warrant closer investigation, dramatically increasing the efficiency of exploration missions. The integration of quantum sensors is opening up entirely new ways of studying the deep ocean. These incredibly sensitive instruments can detect minute changes in gravity, magnetic fields, and other physical properties that reveal hidden geological structures beneath the seafloor. They're helping scientists understand the geological processes that create deep-sea trenches, underwater mountain ranges, and other features that shape the ocean floor. Biotechnology derived from deep-sea organisms is leading to breakthroughs that will benefit humanity in countless ways. Enzymes from deep-sea bacteria are being used to develop new medicines, industrial processes, and even new materials. The pressure-resistant proteins found in deep trench organisms are inspiring new approaches to materials science and engineering. Within the next 50 years, scientists predict that we'll have mapped and explored most of the major deep-sea environments on Earth. We'll understand the full extent of life in the ocean's depths, and we'll have discovered thousands, perhaps millions, of new species. More importantly, this knowledge will guide our exploration of other worlds, helping us understand where and how life might exist beyond Earth. The deep ocean isn't just our planet's final frontier, it's also our best training ground for becoming an interplanetary species. Every creature we discover in the crushing depths, every adaptation to extreme conditions we document, every survival strategy we uncover brings us closer to understanding how life might survive and thrive in the harsh environments of other worlds. The technologies we develop to explore Earth's deepest trenches will be the same technologies that search for life in the subsurface oceans of Europa and Enceladus. The lessons we learn about life in extreme conditions will guide our search for life among the stars. And the sense of wonder and discovery that drives us to explore our own ocean's depths will be the same spirit that carries humanity to the oceans of other worlds. The future of deep-sea exploration is really the future of exploration itself, a continuation of the human drive to push boundaries, to seek out new life and new possibilities, and to understand our place in the vast cosmos. And it all starts here, in the alien depths of our own blue planet. We've journeyed together through the greatest unexplored frontier on our planet, and what we've discovered is both humbling and absolutely mind-blowing. In the crushing darkness of the deep ocean, life has found ways to thrive that challenge everything we thought we knew about what's possible on our planet and potentially in our universe. We've seen creatures that create their own light in a world of eternal darkness, biological artists painting with bioluminescence in displays more spectacular than any human fireworks show. We've discovered monsters that inspired legends throughout human history, creatures with tentacles longer than school buses and eyes larger than dinner plates, living proof that truth really can be stranger than fiction. We've learned that mysterious sounds that baffled scientists for years can come from something as seemingly simple as ice breaking away from Antarctica, but also that there are still sounds echoing through the deep that we can't explain, calls that might be from animals we've never discovered, or geological processes we don't yet understand. We've explored ecosystems that don't depend on the sun for energy, communities of life thriving around underwater volcanic vents in conditions hot enough to melt lead, cold enough to freeze, and toxic enough to kill most life on Earth. These extremophiles have shown us that life is far more resilient, far more creative, and far more adaptable than we ever imagined. We've descended into trenches deeper than mountains are tall, places where the pressure would crush our bodies instantly, but where life has found ways to flourish. We've seen how the legends of sea monsters told by sailors for thousands of years were actually based on real encounters with creatures every bit as incredible as the myths suggested. But perhaps the most incredible thing we've learned is how much we still don't know. We've barely scratched the surface of the mysteries hiding in our own oceans. Right now, as you finish listening to this, there are creatures moving through the depths that no human has ever seen. There are sounds being made in the abyss that no one has ever heard. There are entire ecosystems thriving in conditions we're only beginning to understand. Somewhere in the crushing depths of a deep-sea trench, new species are waiting to be discovered. Creatures so alien, they might as well be from another planet. In the eternal darkness of the abyssal zone, animals are living lives so extraordinary, so perfectly adapted to impossible conditions, that they expand our understanding of what life can achieve. In the most remote corners of our blue planet, in underwater lakes and around volcanic vents in the deepest canyons and on the highest underwater mountains, nature is still writing new chapters in the story of life that we haven't even begun to read. The deep ocean connects us directly to the possibility of life beyond Earth. Every extremophile we discover, every creature that thrives in impossible conditions, every adaptation to crushing pressure and eternal darkness expands our understanding of where and how life might exist throughout the universe. The same chemistry that allows bacteria to thrive around hydrothermal vents might be powering ecosystems right now in the subsurface oceans of Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus. The same evolutionary creativity that produced giant squid with rotating hooks and fish that make their own light might be at work in alien seas around distant stars. As we continue to explore these depths with increasingly sophisticated technology, as we send AI-powered robots into the abyss and establish permanent research stations on the ocean floor, we're not just satisfying our curiosity about our own planet. We're preparing for the greatest journey humanity has ever attempted, the search for life among the stars. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest secrets of our planet and our universe lie not in the heavens above, but in the mysterious, alien, absolutely incredible depths beneath the waves. The ocean is calling to us with the voices of creatures we've never seen, with the songs of geological forces we don't understand, with the promise of discoveries that will change how we see our world and our place in the cosmos. We're just beginning to learn the ocean's language, and every word we decode reveals that our planet is far more incredible, far more alive, and far more full of surprises than we ever dared to dream. The deep ocean remains our planet's greatest mystery, our best hope for understanding life's infinite possibilities, and our most direct connection to the alien worlds that await us among the stars. The adventure has only just begun.